Good afternoon. Kind of good morning a little bit still to those on the West Coast. I'm Rich Ventura, the Vice President of B2B for Sony Electronics, and welcome to RVonAV. Today's topic will be covering around digital signage, and I'd like to welcome our great panel for today's conversation. Linda Hoflander, the Chief Strategy Officer for SkyKit, Jim Vare, President at Capital Networks Limited, Steve Gray is the Director of Global Partnerships at AppSpace, and Jay Leedy, Senior Business Development Manager at Sony Electronics. Welcome, everybody. Hope you're having a great day.
Thank you, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
So I'm going to kind of start off to just have everybody introduce themselves. We'll start off with Linda. Tell us a little bit about SkyKit.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Sony, and the panel for having me on today. Linda Hoflander, Chief Strategy and Business Development Officer at SkyKit. I've been in digital signage for over 20 years. I've worked on all sides of it, hardware, software, services, consulting. Really drawn to the SkyKit solution based here in Minneapolis. We are a digital signage company. Basically, we have 3 softwares in our Beam platform, which is our digital signage platform. So we cover small business, Medlar, and enterprise. The software stack makes up also with SkyKit Control, which is our device management software, and SkyKit Turf, which is our visitor check-in, guest check-in, room booking, desk booking solution that we have. So that's the software stack and a variety of add-ons on top of that. And then this last year, throughout COVID, we also launched a hardware line of media players, which are Android-based. So we're a cloud-based software and excited to be part of the panel today.
Perfect. Thanks, Linda. Jim.
Oh, thanks, Rich, for inviting me. We're located up here in Canada, and our borders are still closed with you guys, so I don't get out very much anymore. So it's nice to be on the panel. Capital Networks, as I said, we're just north of Toronto. We just had our 30th birthday as an organization, and we started a while ago broadcasting cable, but been doing a lot more digital signage these days. We across a wide variety of industry segments with lots of different platforms and solutions for people. And we are looking forward to participating in today's session.
Perfect. So Steve over at AppSpace.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Hi, everyone. Steve Gray, Director of Partnerships at AppSpace. We have a very channel-centric go-to-market at AppSpace. I lead all of our reseller and technology partnerships around the globe. AppSpace is an end-to-end workplace experience platform. Clients can use AppSpace for digital signage, video walls, kiosk, visitor management, hot desking, conference room booking, and more. So we make it easy for organizations to standardize on all their digital workplace initiatives under one software platform versus a bunch of point products. Super excited about the partnership with Sony. We think the market, both our clients and resellers, are really going to enjoy the partnership and make it super simple to have one software hardware standard across our globe.
Perfect. Thank you. And Jay Leedy from Sony.
Thanks, Rich. Jay Leedy from Sony. I'm a B2B Senior Business Development Manager, working in partnership with Rich Ventura's sales organization on our product planning and roadmap organization mapped up through Tokyo. So I come in with it's going on 9 years of experience working in the AV and digital signage integration space prior to joining Sony across a range of different disciplines, largely focused on digital signage. And so since joining Sony about 8 months ago, most of my focus has been on helping to address gaps in some of our strategy and build out a partner ecosystem primarily for digital signage, with a range of partners that bring differentiated capabilities, as well as various applications that are specialized to specific use cases within a number of different environments. And happy to be here.
Perfect. So today's conversation, we're going to break into some different aspects of digital signage. We're going to look at the market, technology, strategy, and direction. So please make sure during this whole thing, we've got the Q&A, ask questions. We will do our best to answer as many of these questions as we possibly can on today's recording. If not, we'll also make sure to submit information back out to you. But please look at that top right corner and click on any questions you might have. So like I said at the beginning here, this is all around digital signage. And I think all of us have been in this industry long enough to remember the beginning of digital signage when we first started talking about it. And I even remember years and years ago having a conversation with somebody who said, mark my words, this is going to be 90% of your business. And I looked at him and said, no, I sell desktop displays. That is 99% of my business. And look at it today. It is core to our business. So, let's talk a little bit as a group, and I'll kind of bounce around for different ones. Let's talk a little bit about this past year and a half and really how digital signage has evolved from a market perspective. And maybe I'll start with you, Linda, and talk a little bit about what you've seen this last year and a half.
Sure. Thanks, Rich. The last year and a half was really hard, I think, on the industry. And I think it kind of depends on what part of the ecosystem you were in. Obviously, I think with hardware, it was very challenging. A lot of installations couldn't happen because, hospitals, healthcare, in general, hospitality, hard to get in. On the software side, I think we fared a little bit better because we have a horizontal solution. And so when you have vertical markets that are really strong, and then when those vertical markets like food service, healthcare you weren't getting into, different corporate was pretty much shut down, you just switched to verticals that were actually buying. And so I would say probably that was one of the biggest changes, is that early on there was a couple of strong things. It was to retain your existing business, just be very, very easy to do business with, realize that we're going to all get through this together, and delay renewals and things if you have to. But from a solution side, it was to kind of really focus on what those essential businesses were in manufacturing and other areas, and then just build out very purpose-driven solutions. And so it wasn't your standard, give me some sales promotions and some information this way, but a lot of it was really directional and information to kind of help people, get to the right place that they needed to be, or to deliver and pick up food in a certain zone, or pop-up stores. And so there was just a lot of different use cases. So I think, definitely new business models and use cases popped up out of COVID, but I think, the industry in general, people were hit pretty hard. I think it's coming back now.
Yeah, it definitely is coming back. It seems like that's all I hear about are projects left and right. So Jim, you've got a very interesting viewpoint coming from north of us, and I know you guys have been in a lot longer lockdown than we have, and I'm glad to hear it's loosening up there a bit. So tell me a bit about what you've seen this last year and a half.
Yeah, I can share similar stories to what Linda said for sure. Our existing customers, I always used to not complain sometimes, but the lack of focus. We had so many different customers across lots of different verticals, but it was really helpful right now in the past year. The customers that were still active, still doing business, they needed some more tools. They needed to be able to communicate better to their employees and their businesses that were open, and we were able to focus on those people and give them some more solutions that really helped out. We also spent the time to work a little bit more closely with a lot of strategic partners in the industry, and so that was very productive use of our time. Now with the other businesses that we have worked with and some new customers we're attracting, they're coming back, and we've got some experience about the communication challenges that we had to go through and help people with this past year and a bit. And thankfully, people are responding to those and looking forward to deploying new projects now.
Yeah, I think what I've noticed from all of you is there's been this great evolution happening during these last 18 months, that either new features, new solutions, new ways of applications. And I think I've heard from all of you something that we didn't hear a year and a half ago, and that was about hot desking and hoteling and things like that. Seems like that's been one of the biggest, newest features I've heard from a lot of software companies. Steve, if you look at your last year and a half at AppSpace, what's been that evolution that you've seen?
Yeah, so a couple of things. Around the communication side of our platform, organizations felt like they lost their voice with their employees when they went to the home office. And so when COVID hit, we heard from our clients, what do you need to be successful? And one thing was, our employees are living in their business apps all day. So whether that's Slack, Microsoft Teams, WebEx Teams, workplace, wherever it might be. So we use the AppSpace publishing platform, so the same publishing tools that you use to get content to displays in the workplace, to get that content into the business apps that our employees are using every day. So that was really the first problem we solved, to make this really pervasive, because people are not in the office to absorb the messaging. The long tail of that was, I think signage in the office went from a nice to have to a must have. I think it used to be this sort of thing that people put up and they weren't sure what to do with it, to, oh, wow, we have a lot of new use cases, and we know more than ever when employees go back to the office, when we bridge that gap from the virtual to the physical office, we need to make sure that communication is consistent. And with that was a lot of new use cases. Around managing spaces, we rolled out the AppSpace employee app, which you can receive all of your communication feeds in that app, but you can also find and book spaces going back to the office, as most companies aren't going to have a full office when they go back. So whether they downsize their real estate footprint, or whether they're just not bringing people back at capacity, people aren't going back and having assigned desk to the scale that they used to do. So that's one of our newest features is, in addition to managing communication, also managing spaces going back to the office. So that's been the latest trend the last 6 months we've seen. And I would say out of all of our features, that's the number one thing we talk about every day right now.
Okay. So Jay, in your role in supporting, B2B organization and also the parts within Sony, it's probably been pretty eye-opening looking at a lot of the different solutions out there and a lot of the different technologies out here. Looking at our three great partners that are on here, I mean, what are those things that you've seen in the last year and a half that they've done in their evolution and really evolved and expanded on their products?
Yeah, so it's been interesting because of the first half of that, let's say 18 months spread, I was actually still at Diversified. We, like many in this space, both digital signage and AV centric focuses, pivoted to focus on where the opportunity was, and a lot of that was in addressing return to office concerns, as Steve touched on. And we saw communication begin to take shape around mission critical requirement rather than a nice to have or more of a branding play. Really focused on situational awareness, helping people understand in some cases what areas had been cleaned and therefore represented a safe environment to go into, what hot desking and hoteling spaces were available at a glance, but also providing key KPIs and performance metrics in a range of verticals from supply chain to manufacturing facilities. Again, in the interest of ongoing communication and meeting the demand for this now much more diversified hybrid workforce, to get information to them in the place that it makes most sense. So definitely an evolution and growth towards modules that support delivery of that content to desktops, in addition to traditional digital signage screens, was a definite, a quick evolution. And we saw, a lot of focus around those types of applications as I came into Sony about 8 months ago as well. That's just continued to grow, I think. I believe that digital signage has gone through this kind of evolution very rapidly, along, as well as many other technologies because of the pandemic. Things, that were already happening in retail, for example, like buy online, pick up in store, that was, being tested in a number of applications, and a number of retailers looking at that technology as a way to meet customer needs. Those things really accelerated, and the companies that had the infrastructure to meet that need were the ones that won over the last 18 months or so.
Perfect. So one thing just to remind everybody that's on these, we do record these panels, and there's our Tech Tuesdays and all these different things are available. So we'll be flashing out a link periodically through here, but it is the pro.sony/AV webinars. where you can see that. So definitely you'll be able to play these back to your heart's content and learn and listen over and over again. So kind of getting back a little bit about the market, because that's where we're going to start. That's where we're starting our conversations, really around the market. And we've talked about the evolution. We've talked a little bit about changes you've seen or that you've done. What are those markets that we saw really be strong during this period of time? Obviously we know retail took a pretty hard hit this past year and a half, and not as many retailers have been open as much as we'd like to, or the restaurants and things like that. But maybe let's talk a little bit about the vertical markets and even some of the applications that you've seen that have been really strong. I'm going to start with Jim and kind of get some of your feedback on this, and we'll work around the room.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, some of the ones that have been accelerated a little bit that we've seen in the past year is around the area of the MDU, or multiple dwelling units, where people live, like in condos or apartment buildings, and that kind of drips into our long-term care, retirement, and healthcare sectors as well. Where people live, there was a lot of concerns, and it was environments where people showed up every day, but the rules could be different today than they were yesterday. And so there was a real effort around using signage, making sure it was connected, making sure it was updated in real time, so that people could get the information that they needed to feel safe in the environments that they worked in. The other areas that worked well for us in the past year, we've been making efforts with a lot of local governments, municipalities, and that's an area that continues to work for us. They're still in business. They still have lots of business that they have to do. They have a lot of employees. They have a lot of public-facing things that they have to communicate. So those two areas, just where people live and work, is, we talked about a lot of workspaces earlier with everybody, and that's very important for digital signage. But where people were living and how they carry on their day-to-day life was something that was interesting to us the past year.
Okay. Linda, how about what are you guys seeing over at SkyKit?
Yeah, it's been really interesting as far as like how people are looking. We first looked at the data to see like who was coming and looking at the website, where were they spending time, and what industries were really interested in finding out more. I would say that it was split in half for us. The people who were still buying, I think it was interesting because the multi-dwelling units was definitely something we saw. We do a lot with government, manufacturing. Small business kept buying, which was, I thought, kind of interesting, a lot with cannabis. Maybe they need to relax a little bit, so the cannabis market was doing very well. But it's interesting. I would say that we spent a lot of time with people who knew that once they went back to work, that things were going to be different. And so we actually did a lot of bidding on stuff that was still going to be like 4 months out, 5-6 months out. And so I would say first, for us, food service came back, then corp com, and then I think retail is starting to come back. We've, we kind of get a mix of everything because we have a pretty broad offering that focuses on solutions for small business versus medium and large. But a lot of big projects coming back right now, and I think people just had a lot of time to vet solutions on their hands. So a lot of meetings happened during the COVID period.
No, it's interesting you bring up the cannabis and a lot of the small businesses. I think we've just seen a massive explosion in that space. So. And every market, whether it's not even just digital signage, security, you go down a list of it, everything, technology is really blowing up around there. So it's been a very interesting time. Steve, how about what are you seeing over at AppSpace? Anything different? Other markets that have been exploding for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, so our focus is more like mid to large size business, and I think those that were actually buying, or industry specific, like pharma, manufacturing, people that were, had people in the office or in some workplace setting during COVID were still moving, POs were still coming in, people were still doing business. For a lot of others that were just trying to figure out what their real estate was going to look like and what their office is going to look like, we saw them take a pause, and most of them didn't turn off their signage because they didn't know when they were bringing employees back to the office, and starting over or redoing that was a real pain point. So most of them chugged along. It was more about getting organized. And one trend we did see that I thought was great is people forming workplace teams. So I think the history of signage, people have bought in silos. So a lot of companies wound up with a bunch of different solutions. I mean, even for signage, they might wind up with 3 or 4 different signage softwares, and a lot of that's locked down on proprietary technology. And then they started vetting new initiatives like space management and, conference room management, things of that nature. So as they started forming more sophisticated workplace teams, we started seeing new stakeholders that maybe we didn't talk to as regularly as we have in the past. So typically we're buying from IT and talking to IT, who's often tasked with solving a corporate communications problem. Well, we find ourselves at a table with corp comms and HR and other executives and facilities and IT, and these sophisticated teams are able to take time, look at all their different systems and consolidate, and actually come back with a much smarter plan as they brought employees back to the office, how they're going to manage all this. So that was one trend that we saw that really fell in our favor with the way we designed our platform.
Okay, great. So Jay, any markets we're missing or things that you've seen just in your research and study? I know one thing I'll throw out there, just something that we've definitely seen from a B2B is education was starting to spend in signage.
Mm-hmm.
It was very different than what we saw in the past. And I know we saw also things like distribution centers, retailers focusing a lot of time on their distribution centers as well. Jay, anything you're seeing from your conversations besides that?
Absolutely. I'd say really as a result of distribution becoming so critical in meeting customer need, as people shifted their buying behaviors to online and delivering to their home directly or to their business directly, call centers have really become more significant, and remote support, as well as providing call stats to the teams of support personnel that are tied to those operations. And my suspicion is that they've been wholly invested in solving for the immediate issue at hand in addressing the pandemic, which is, in the healthcare industry, both hospitals and assisted living facilities and the types of facilities that need to address clinics. They haven't yet made significant investments in digital signage, but I expect that there will be a trend to drive that for more automated check-in and more information at a glance, both for personnel and for patients, as well as using technologies like digital signage and IPTV solutions for patient consultations. We saw, a huge growth, for example, in telemedicine, and I would expect that a better understanding of how those tools can ultimately drive more flexibility and more convenience for doctor-patient consultations, that there'll be a better appreciation and a more mature attitude towards platforms like digital signage in rounding out that entire ecosystem.
Okay, cool. So we're going to move from market and let's talk about technology. So we had to geek out for a little bit here. One of the things I think we've all heard so much about, especially I'd say it seems like it's been longer the last year, but it's been even bigger in the last year, has been really talking around the cloud and IoT and analytics and all this intelligent stuff, right? So let's talk a little bit about, I'll start with you, Steve. Talk a little bit about, how the cloud has maybe changed or impacted what you're doing, and IoT devices. I know that plays a big part in the cloud and analytics. So maybe talk a little bit about what you guys are seeing at AppSpace.
The cloud changed everything. So when we rolled the cloud out, AppSpace Cloud out 5.5 years ago, we had a lot of clients that said, we'll never do cloud. A lot of really big banks and other clients. And since that time, over the last 5 years, about 80% of our clients are now in the cloud. I'd say the exceptions would probably be some in SLED or FedGov where they really just can't do it yet. So it's made it so much easier to set up, manage, and deploy at scale for organizations. So it's been an absolute game changer. And then to your point, you get all the analytics you need as well. And bottom line, it just works. no more having clients that are 5 versions behind on your software and asking for features that you had 5 versions ago. So it's made our lives easier, and most importantly, it's made our clients' lives easier to scale all this. And then, some of the other things in terms of like, IoT and plugging things into the platform, we're seeing more clients that want to have, broader experiences with their digital signage experience. So the cloud makes that a lot easier. And we've been able to develop a lot of tools to make it really simple to have API calls and to connect to other systems to get third-party systems, dashboards, and things of that nature deployed. So I think it's just at the end of the day, going back to the crux of your question, the cloud's been an absolute industry game changer, and it's been really nice seeing the market catch up with that and adopt it.
Okay. So Linda, knowing a lot of your pedigree at SkyKit and knowing a lot of the backgrounds from the organization, I think the cloud kind of played a little bit of importance in your business too, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because you mentioned earlier about kind of being in the industry for a long time. And I was thinking back about when we used to actually go out to Time Warner and actually be pushing content by satellite and just praying that there wasn't a big storm rolling in when you were doing live events and whatnot. So it's kind of interesting. But SkyKit is Google Cloud Platform. And so GCP, so we were the first digital signage, Google Cloud Platform, digital signage software. So we've never had an on-prem model. It's always been about the cloud and leveraging, G Suite and Drive and kind of growing from there. But, between the security and the ability to, have, unlimited expansion in the cloud, and, we are built with material design of Google. It's just, I can't even imagine going back another way. I think we've never had anyone being too concerned that it was a cloud-based application, other than people want to know, can you cache the content to the device? And absolutely you can. So I would say that's a question. Security, there's security docs. I mean, Department of Defense has gone through all of this. So it's like, I think the security is all there and very buttoned up. Security in general has always been a really big issue. And I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing people move over to connectivity from LTE, is just, again, with, the cyber security issues that have popped up here in the past months over the summer and whatnot. And so, no, we love the cloud. We're all about the cloud. So 100% in the cloud, every customer, all licenses.
So Jim, when you're looking at introducing things like the cloud and all these things, it introduces a whole new level of complexity in our world, doesn't it? And we talk a lot about APIs and all the connectivities that have to be done. I mean, what are things that Capital Networks, how do you support or how do you help your customers who probably don't know they need a lot of that connectivity?
The cloud has been a really great opportunity for our customers. I mean, obviously we started quite a long time ago, so all our customers were on-premise based years ago. But I would say, just like others, the majority of our new projects and new customers are all going to the cloud. And but so is all the other technology that we're talking about interfacing with. And so on one hand, it's making it easier to get access to interface with some of these new solutions and be reflective of other technologies and other solutions people are putting into their environments. I know there was some people counting cameras for some retail customers that we interfaced with this past year, and getting access to their back-end software and the results of their data is one area that we can interface with that. And it's providing a lot more opportunity to interface with different kind of solutions if everybody's in the cloud. So it's working out really well for everyone. Plus, for us, in the past year, we had a number of customers ask us to help them operate because they were running on reduced staffs and running reduced environments. And so we became their digital signage department down the hall. And that's a neat thing to be able to do. And when you have connectivity and all your solutions in the cloud, it's another service you can extend to the customers. That's working well for us.
Okay. So Jay, one of the questions that got thrown out here and echoes a little bit off of what Jim said and Steve and Linda, was really talking about creating that more frictionless signage content delivery. And it's really about building better APIs so that software can talk better to the other software. Is that really something our customers are asking for? Do they need to know about this, or just the fact that the CMS companies are already doing it, it's good enough? I mean, what's your thoughts?
It's absolutely something the customers are asking for, and I would say that the idea of the cloud overall has matured. There used to be jokes. Any number of comedians would kind of point out that the cloud was this kind of nebulous idea that people really couldn't grasp. But now, as IT and the average consumer better understands the benefits of cloud services and the inherent security that goes along with that technology, companies that were at one time strongly committed to an on-prem model have evolved to migrate to the cloud for a number of different business applications for which they're seeking to drive more extensibility on those applications. So we saw this accelerate, obviously with the use of Zoom and Teams and other video conferencing platforms that have grown in sophistication exponentially over the last 18 months. But digital signage has been a part of that as well, where the idea of automating communication from a number of cloud business tools and other systems like POS and CRM, workforce management systems. All of those have very robust APIs that allow for third-party data to be ingested and visualized in a way that's meaningful, insightful, and actionable for clients across a range of different applications. So the cloud's been really a boon as far as digital signage is concerned. And I don't think there's really a great argument for on-prem, with the exception of legacy decisions from a security perspective that are maybe informed by less sophisticated cloud-based technologies.
So Linda, tell me a bit about how SOC is playing into your strategy. I know you talked about you're building some external Android players, but SOC has been one of the big topics we've all heard in the industry for quite a while. I mean, how's that playing in your strategic direction?
Yeah, absolutely. We get asked regularly about, should I do SOC? Should I do a media player? And, it's, you can build a case and depending on who the customer is on what model they should go. We only do Android SOC. For those of you who aren't super familiar with SkyKit, I mean, we're a software development company. We're not a sales office that has offshored anything. We develop everything. Our entire team is US based. And so when we're trying to figure out, what the customer's looking for, and many people, every time they see additional appliances added onto a screen, they're saying, okay, this can break and this can break and this can break. They like the idea of having a system on a chip. Historically, for us, it's been a problem when people are on too old of versions of firmware, because as a software company, we're kind of developing and trying to grow and plan for the future. And I think that was probably one of the great things that we liked when we started working with Sony, was that, being on a current version of the Android SoC the OS was really, really helpful. And so, for us, many of our customers like that ability to have an SoC solution. It is Android that we're using. We do have external media players that we work with that will put on a Sony screen as well. But yeah, I think everybody's been super positive about what's been going on with the work that Sony's done on the, Pro Bravia line. And, right out of the box, first impression, super strong from the minute we started working with Sony, and all the QA team was super happy with everything. And so, we have a device management tool that is called SkyKit Control, and it works like really well with the Sony SoC. So we're really happy about all of this. It's going well.
Excellent. Steve, so I mean, how much has SOC been impacting with AppSpace?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the market clamors for a consumerized experience. I mean, it's much like going and getting a TV from, your local Best Buy. People want to boot that up and have their channels and have it just work. So when we develop our strategy with our software and hardware, we want that whole experience to be, kind of have a consumerized, but experience, but obviously have all the commercial grade features that you'd expect out of a software, hardware, digital signage experience. With that, I think it's very important to understand what the clients want to do with it. So we do very extensive testing, and the Sony RVonAV has been just awesome, and it's a very robust product. So I would say for clients that it meets their needs, and they can certainly grow into it with not only the use cases they have today, but future use cases, and understand where they're going with the roadmap of signage to make sure that they have the right hardware today. So whether that's having everything as a system on chip today, because that's the right use case for what they're doing, or that's they're going to grow into something with a heavier application that maybe needs more memory or something to where they need an external box for certain applications at certain locations. So a lot of it's just understanding what they're trying to do. But I think holistically, this is what the market wants. They would rather not have another piece of hardware that plugs into the display. So in a perfect world, you just have the software embedded into the hardware, you turn it on, you register your channels, and you provision at scale. So that's what the market wants to see. And I think, what we have with Sony, certainly checks that box.
Excellent. So Jim, you and I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago had this conversation about SoC, and we talked about where the tech was there, and then we talked about where it's at now. I mean, how much has SoC evolved and changed the way you're supporting it?
Yeah, we've dabbled with all kinds of different SoC solutions, and because customer demand is that is what they're looking for, and digital signage is just a style of communications, and people want to be able to deploy it quickly across a lot of different places, and using the right tool for the job is what they have to do, and SoC is a great place to start. As the other people on the panel have said, sometimes you have to use external gear, but we like the SoCs, like the Sony experience that we've had in developing and working with you guys, that's full featured, and we're able to use a lot of the software tools. We've been selling Android for external media players for over 10 years. So when we get a chance to use Android based SoC media players, we really like to be able to show people what you can accomplish with an SoC solution. So I think it's great days ahead for the SoC, and I'm looking forward to working with you guys on yours.
That's great. So Jay, I mean, part of your role, you're working with the team in Japan as well as in here in the US, and how we better define the SoC experience. What's been that general feedback? I mean, we've heard a lot of great things from Steve, Linda, and Jim about what they've experienced so far. I mean, what are you seeing for the continued evolution on SoC?
Yeah, so first of all, there's been a couple of really positive pieces of feedback that we've gotten from a number of partners that have been working with our SoC, which is that performance-wise, it's equal to a third-party box in many cases. A NUC typically is compared to this as a benchmark. So performance from a processing and image presentation perspective is very good. The other thing that has been a very nice confirmation of our strategy from the market and these various partners has been that Android, as Linda and Jim have already alluded to, has been a part of their strategy for some time, but the market in general, especially in the systems integration side, has been a little reluctant to deploy and specify Android, largely because IT administrators who had to approve those devices going into their networks in enterprise environments had, rightly or wrongly, some concerns about the ability to manage those devices and what potential security those posed to risks that they proposed to their environments. The adoption of MDM and bring your own device strategies where employees are bringing their own phones into enterprise environments, and the need to manage those devices effectively has driven a change in the market and really kind of helped the attitudes in enterprise network admins evolve and mature to the point where they have a degree of comfort with well understood tools, and also understand that Android doesn't pose a threat so long as it's managed correctly. So one of the things that we've done that Linda alluded to is that we're not a rooted system, meaning that we rely on ongoing updates that are essentially issued by Google to remain as secure and as relevant as possible on our version of Android. That combined with the kind of emerging prevailing attitude around Android as a viable device within these enterprise environments has really helped us garner a lot of interest in the market from the partners, as well as in many cases address a gap which was left by the Chrome OS really kind of being decommissioned for digital signage applications. And most of the developers that were focused on that, and companies that had development talent focused on Chrome OS, have pivoted to Android. So that's all, only kind of further strengthening this offer in the context of their existing strategies.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go into strategy a bit, kind of a good segue into it. And I'm actually going to start with a question that was posed to us from the audience. And I'm going to throw this one out to you, Steve. As a consultant, how can I assist my clients in budgeting not just the hardware components, but the CMS and recurring costs?
Yeah, a great question. So I think first and foremost, I think it goes back to understanding what your clients are trying to accomplish, so that you're aligning them with the right plan with the software that's right for them. So, I mean, once again, understanding what they're trying to do, so you align with the right software company for what not only do they need today, but what they're going to scale into. So understanding kind of the bigger picture of what they're trying to accomplish. AppSpace, for example, we have simple subscription tiers. So depending on how many endpoints, regardless of your use case, so regardless of using AppSpace for all signage, or you're connecting us to room scheduling as well as a space reservation and other features of our platform, we count how many devices are connected. So with our platform specifically, we're counting the number of devices and we're right-sizing them per plan. From there, it's just a matter of figuring out how many Sony Bravia displays they need, and then totaling it up. So I'd say very top level, just understanding the needs of the client.
Okay. And I'm assuming probably the other key to this is really building those relationships with your CMS partners so that they can bring you in and have those conversations at the beginning stage and not down the road after they've already designed it. So
100%.
Great. So, Linda, Jim, anything else you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, I actually wanted to jump in. It's really interesting. I think, in the past, it was more of a formula. I mean, you could pretty much anticipate that the software was going to be 16 to 18% of the total project. And I'm just going to say that, I don't even think it was because of COVID. I just think as the industry has matured, you can't really look at it that way anymore. And I think that there's so many companies that are going in with co-branded solutions or partnerships that it's about finding a partner and a solution that you like and just keep going deeper and wider. And when you build relationships, and if you're a consultant and you're advising, it's the more projects you do, also the better pricing you'll get. So I think it's just about having some very open, candid conversations with your partners and your customers on exactly what they're looking for, and then connect all those dots.
Okay. Jim, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd like to add is, these days, most digital signage is a lot more automating content and interfacing with systems that customers have. So explaining why you need a CMS that is going to be able to help you out every day to automate that content and get it on your screens and communicating your messages, that helps to build the value as you try and introduce to your customer why you need to spend some time and think about what the CMS is and what CMS is right for you, for your application.
Okay, great. So Linda, I'm going to ask probably one of the most broadest questions I can ask. How do you help companies define a digital signage strategy? I think that's one of the things everybody wants to know is how do you do something like that?
Yeah,
Not an easy question.
So strategy is my sweet spot. I love working on strategy, and I spend a lot of time talking with customers about strategy. And it's so interesting because there's so much data that most companies already know about their business and what they're trying to do. And I think the first layer is you start to kind of scrape away at what it is that they're trying to do. And it's interesting because, you know, you can ask a company, you know, like, how much do you want to grow this year? And some people don't even have an answer. And you're like, okay, well, if you sold X last year and you want to grow by this percent, and it's like, you know, what margins do you make on your products? What products can you cross-sell or upsell to? And so you're trying to figure out a lot of different things that are going on. And so what it's literally like having these layers of information that you just keep collecting. And then once you've collected the information about, you know, their business, their offerings, then you start talking about their customers and who their customers and those offerings are. And, you know, because some people sell just to consumers. Other people also, you know, if you're like, let's say you're in the construction business or something, you know, it's like you have all these different types of customers. So once you segment them all out, then it's about looking at what is marketing really. So if you break it down into, I'm going to educate, inform, entertain, convert, promote, or sell to. And so then you take these 6 areas and then you say, okay, well, right now we know that most people buy stuff from people who educate them about their products. And so what do they want to know about the product? So then you go back to data. Okay, if it's an expensive item, women need 10 times as much information about a product than what a man does to make a decision. Cars are a really good example. And so it's like, once you start weaving everything together and you go down through, you know, the educate and entertain, you know, right now coming out of COVID, people are really looking to leverage the data that they have. And so, you know, we started talking about APIs and how you fetch information from dashboards. I mean, one of the huge trends is people actually putting all of that data to work right now. So I think strategically it's you have a process, and I'm a big person saying that most everything's a formula. Writing songs is a formula, writing books is a formula, laying out your strategy for digital signage is a formula. And so you start layering it and you start connecting the dots. And then once you have all the things that you're going to actually talk about identified, then you say how best to put those on a digital sign. What are best practices for sharing information on a digital sign? You know, how many words should go? What colors go well together? How long should they be, you know, up on the screen? And so, you know, from there, then you start deciding, okay, can I just push single pieces of content? Do I just want a video? We know videos are super popular right now. And so, you know, can the video, you know, gain more traction? And so I think that it's, you know, if it's not on paper, it's not real. Start writing stuff down, start collecting the data, and then, you know, reverse engineer to that. And, you know, strategy, you know, I love to think about it as strategy is simple. It's how do you get from point A to point B? So my first question is, do you know what point B is? So that's kind of how I would answer your general question there, Rich, but love to do strategy, love to help people map out. I've written some of the largest day part programming guides, probably in the country, for people who are scheduling content over my career, my 21 years in being in digital signage. So love it.
I think you're on mute, Rich.
Yeah.
It might help if I unmute, wouldn't it? So maybe, Jim, a little bit of a twist to that is,
Sure.
you know, how do you help, or let me rephrase this. What tools are out there or information that's out there that helps companies get through this strategy development they're trying to do?
What tools are out there? Interesting. Well, we you know, I don't know, like our customers, we've been doing a lot of retrofit, what I call retrofit jobs in the past couple of years, where people have started with some digital signage, but found that they can't expand the way they want it to, and they can't meet their needs. So we've been working with them, with ourselves, with our tools to help them identify how far they want to grow and what is the reason why they're launching their new screens and their new communications channels that they're doing. And so I haven't been introducing a lot of third-party tools out there, frankly, Rich, right now, the past little bit. So you did catch me there. But so we're just got our own solutions that we're doing, and we're taking advantage of all the different ways that people want to deploy their new channels.
Okay. Okay. So,
Yeah.
Steve, we talked earlier about hot desking and how you guys have changed that stuff. And I think one of the questions that came in, I was going to ask something different, but I think this is actually a great question to ask you is, everyone thinks that when they do a room schedule sign, all they're doing is putting a display outside and it plays Outlook.
Not at all.
If you're really deploying.
I guess conceptually it's showing events from Outlook or whatever calendar provider you have, right? So in essence, you are connecting back to that system. And 3 years ago, the problem that we set out to solve there is the conference room available and can I book it on demand? That was the number one feature. And since that time, it's really grown into a much more sophisticated solution. So, speaking specifically around the room scheduling panel outside of a conference room, you still want to use it for that, but also it often needs to talk to the technology inside the conference room. So AppSpace has built integrations with a lot of collaboration tools like Cisco collaboration, the Cisco collaboration suite of products, Crestron collaboration suite of products, and more to where those technologies speak as well. So when you go into the conference room, you can even control what's on the screen as far as showing events from people count in the room, and showing events, what's going on inside the room, talking to what's going on outside of the room. So we've actually built that into a much more robust offering by connecting those systems. But in essence, kind of going back to tackling and blocking, it's about managing conference room space and understanding when I book a room, and is it being used, and getting all those analytics that you need to make great business decisions around how you're managing your conference room technology. So both being used for being able to manage that from a employee level to know if it's available and can I book it, and is someone in the room, and when their meeting's coming up, and what equipment's in the room, and all those important components, but also from a management level of understanding how your conference room space, which is a very significant investment across the organization, is being used.
Okay. Yeah, we're definitely seeing that evolution where it's not just you've got AV on one side, conference room over here, collaboration here, signage over here, and IT over here. They're really melding together really well these last few years. So we're going to go to the last area, which is around direction. And, Jay, I'm going to kind of start off with you a little bit here. And, what is that technology that we think is going to be impacting our space in the coming years? And we talked about cloud, we talked about IoT, we talked a bit about analytics. What are we seeing that's coming?
It's a great question. I don't have a crystal ball. I would say, we're going to see much more growth in, what we're calling today direct view LED as a technology, and a reduction in video wall implementations because of the benefits that direct view LED offers across a range of different verticals. But I think the growing trend, and what will continue to be paramount in the industry for the foreseeable future, is really about interoperability and flexibility. I think we all in the AV world, know that actually IT as well, anything technology related is suffering right now because of shortages in semiconductors. It's creating challenges in being able to fulfill and execute in capital projects. And we're seeing a need to have more flexibility inherent in the strategy for deployment of devices within environments, so that any disruptions to supply chain or evolutions in new technology that want to be implemented in a more open source fashion can be done so. I'd say that that's something that certainly is part of our core focus, and seems to be resonating with the partners and clients that we're talking with at this point.
Okay. So Linda, where do you see, from a vertical perspective, what verticals do you think we're going to see this growth in now? I mean, we've talked a lot about a lot of different things this last 54 minutes. What verticals do you see growing as we come out of into this new norm that we have, that we call now the new norm? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I would say that, what we're seeing right now, and the things that I think are going to grow, a lot of it is just out of need. So I think CorpCom is going to continue to grow because you have 71% of people polled recently were really just like about going back to work, don't really want to go back into the office. You look at hiring right now. I mean, there's most people anticipate that they might lose up to 25% of their staff after COVID. So a lot of people are jumping to different jobs, and so you're trying to like rebuild a culture by sharing information and kind of like educating people and getting information out there. So I think that the corporate communications, there's going to be a lot of people looking for new ways to engage the people within the office space. I think sharing data is going to be one of the ways that they're going to do that. So a lot of that data that has been collected for a long time, you're probably going to see some like inspiration centers popping up where people just try to just have the autonomy to figure out better ways to help the company because they're just exposed to more data. I think healthcare and hospitality will come back, but we've seen food service came back first for us. We do some large business as well. We've not seen the retail like what other people say that they've been seeing, but I think that there's reasons why we'll see retail come back. And I know that there's a lot of interest around touchscreens and things in retail, but I would say CorpCom, healthcare, education. Those are probably, government's really strong right now for us. And I think that's because they just keep buying year round. So.
Okay. So Jim, how about for you? What are you seeing? Any other verticals that are, or markets that are opening up now?
I know up here there's a focus on long-term care home or assisted living homes and retirement. And that's also spilling over into condos and apartment buildings, and getting information to people. And you're talking about technologies, and you mentioned integrations with other things. I think finding ways to take advantage of the smartphones that everybody's carrying around and making it easier for people to either get information from the screens or use their phones to interact with the screens that they're seeing. That's a technology trend that is growing a little bit for us. So, and those areas that I mentioned, where people are living and showing up every day, that's a great way to do some information transfer and use technology to help with that.
Okay, perfect. So, Steve, anything else that AppSpace is seeing, any other markets or applications?
Yeah, I think at a super high level for us, it's like I said, we've had a hyper focus on a safe, secure, and controlled return to the office. That's been kind of front of mind for most of our clients. But look, I think Linda talked a little bit early on in the podcast around, industries change a little bit with the economy. So, you look at travel's coming back online. So I think it's gonna be a really good year for those guys. Thankfully, it took a beating last year. So all things that cycle a little bit in terms of where the money is, but overall, I think at a super high level, I think people expect the communication to be very pervasive and to be able to communicate to employees wherever they are, digital signage being a huge piece of that. So I think the good thing for our industry overall is I think it's now paramount to have a communication platform to be able to get to your employees. So I see nothing but a bright future ahead for the digital signage industry.
Cool. So I'm going to close out with the question I ask on every panel, and at some point I'm going to have to stop asking because we're going to get hopefully further away from these last 18 months. But looking back to during this period of COVID and stuff, what's been that technology that you've used in your personal life, work life that's been kind of you can't do without? So we'll kind of go around the room here. I'll start with Linda.
Oh man. I'll say there's two things probably kind of cross over from personal to work also. I loved it when Google Lens added QR code scanning because now that we're getting back into the office and we're back in our office now, just to be able to like click the button and be able to like QR code everything, because I don't think I've touched a menu in a year and a half. So a lot of changes around that. And I admit it, I did stick the IoT Tide button down in the laundry room. So when I was getting low on soap, I just hit it and it orders it from Amazon.
Then how about for you guys? How about for you?
Who's that?
Jim, how about yourself? Yep.
Yeah. Oh boy. Let's see. For technology, well, of course, I was always doing video conferencing, but the Teams and stuff, it's keeping in touch with all my staff remotely from home. That's been it. And for home and personal, I got myself, since I had more time at home, I got myself a smoker, and I've been doing that. And so personally, that's affected my life most. It's using a smoker.
I actually broke down and bought
too.
one last week and put that thing on the network, and I can control it from my phone.
You'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it.
Oh yeah, Steve, how about you?
God, I like that smoker answer. You're not gonna be able to top that one. But on a personal
What,
level,
laundry detergent doesn't do it for you?
That's pretty good too, Linda. I'm not gonna lie to you. Talking about a guy who does laundry like twice a year, but no, that is a wonderful one. For me, my personal is probably YouTube TV. I've been trying to break up with the cable company for some time, and they were an effective breakup. So I've enjoyed YouTube TV, and I guess professionally, I mean, it's kind of a love-hate. I guess more of a love we use Slack and WebEx Teams internally, and that's just made communication super easy over the last 18 months. But it doesn't stop ever.
No, it doesn't. It definitely doesn't. How about you, Jay?
Well, pervasive, participation in video conferences, podcasts, various webcasts, noise canceling headphones from Sony have been a massive benefit for me. These little guys I just got this week. We just launched these things. The sound's amazing, but it's been really important for me, not only for, business, but also for personal life, because, my family and I are all in the same space. I'm up early and sometimes up late. And so being able to go to an area that doesn't disrupt my family while I'm conducting business, or, enjoying something to relax that gives me, full array of sound without waking the entire house up has been a real benefit for me personally.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank Linda, Jim, Steve, and Jay for spending some time with us today. Those who are familiar with the Tech Tuesdays and RVonAVs, we always follow up at the end talking about the next event. We'll be posting that one very soon, as well as the upcoming RVonAV next month. And if you've got ideas and topics, please don't hesitate to email or message us to hear things you'd like to hear us talk about. We've done stuff around education and healthcare and now digital signage. We'll just keep the ball rolling on other ones. So once again, I want to thank everyone for spending some time with us. I'm Rich Ventura, VP for B2B for Sony, and have a great day.